Today we're talking about a magical 110 named Noire from Cervena Beach. So let me start out, let me tell you why it's magical. There's actually two reasons why it's magical. The first reason being is I was putting some miles on it, driving around here in Sharon Springs, New York, pulled into the filling station to put a little bit of diesel in it. Yes, it is a diesel. And I had a group of individuals, in fact, 3 gentlemen that came up, and they're walking around, they're looking at it, they're trying to figure out what it is, but thankfully they didn't say, hey, nice Jeep. And they just kept on taking it all in. And I'm thinking, what are they thinking? So finally I approached them because I was in the store, and I come up and I'm like, how are you guys doing? And they're like, is this your ride? And I'm like, yes, it is. Well, actually, no, it's not. It's a client. It's going to a client out west in Washington State. But I said, yes. And the one gentleman says, wow, that's magical. And the other guy says, what is it? Yeah, I get that a lot. A lot of people don't understand what it is, that they see the Defender and it says Land Rover on the back, but they just don't put 2 and 2 together. So I tell them it's a Land Rover Defender. The third individual says, oh, wow, they did a great job on it. And I'm like, yeah, it looks great. And he said, so this is the 2025 model. And I'm like, no, actually, this is a 1998 model. And they were amazed. They proceeded to say, can we take pictures? And before you knew it, they were sitting inside doing their selfies. They're texting their friends. And anyway, you get the picture. So Noire D110 by Helderburg. The first thing you'll notice is the color. The color is a black metallic. And if you've ever seen a beluga whale, the whale is so black, it looks blue because of the sheen, the metallic under it. That's exactly what this looks like. Depending on the angles where you're at, it looks black, but then if you hit it like where I'm standing right here and the sun's coming down on it, it has a blue undertone, a blue sheen. You can see all the metallic, and it's quite brilliant. I mean, it's stunning. So just looking at it, the stance, and that's what I hear a lot of times about a Helderburg. It's like, man, how do you get this stance? I will tell you, we do not use wheel spacers. I get asked that a lot of times. We have the proper wheels on here with the proper offset, which is a 45-degree offset. So it gives it that stance, that nice feel, and then the arches on the side, which don't look like that they're actually added on. I mean, on the right truck, the arches that have the bolt holes can look right, but generally I like my design to look like it was that way from the factory, that it was custom designed from the factory the way it sits. So let's talk about the grille. The grille is probably the first thing that you notice on it because it's a very big, bulky grille. It sticks out about 3.5 inches. It actually is flush with the marker and the turn signal lights. So if you look at some of my other builds where we do the Helderburg headlight surrounds, you'll notice that the lights right here, the marker and the turn signal, sticks out, protrudes from the vehicle, which is a very nice vintage classic look. But this is very flush, giving it that ultimate design. And one of the gentlemen actually did say, he said, is that a G-Wagon? I'm like, no. And he goes, oh, it looks a lot like a G-Wagon. I was like, oh, the insult. But anyway, I'm just teasing. But it does give it a modern look with this type of a grille. I don't do this grille often, but if you go to the website and you look for Enzo, the D130, which was my personal vehicle, you'll see this same type of grille, except on that one I did 2-tone. Or if you look for Centurion, the D90 soft top, you'll notice I did the grille. So I'm very selective when I do the grille because this grille is so big, it can make it look awkward. It just looks out of balance if you don't have the right stance and everything put together properly. That you start with the grill and then you build the vehicle around it. In this case, versus my other grill, you start with the vehicle and then the grill happens. It does have the Puma bonnet. The Puma bonnet has the hump, which is a modern design. It gives it a more of a bulky feel, more of a rugged stance to it, versus the classic Land Rover bonnet. Actually has a recessed part here and looks very classic vintage, which we don't do very often. I think I've only done 2 of those out of over 100 and something builds that we've done now. So moving around, you'll see the roll cage on it. The roll cage definitely helps on the stance. It adds more weight, but I will tell you that the roll cage is functional. We cut through the wings, fenders, and then in the back we cut through so the bars do in fact go all the way to the frame where they're bolted to the frame. So it is functional, unlike a lot of the other roll cages that you'll see on some other Land Rovers that they're just simply bolted to the body. So there is function here. So let's talk about magical. Again, they said it was magical, and I said there was 2 reasons it was magical. 1, they said it was magical, and number 2 is what we did under the bonnet, under here. This is a California compliant build. It is a turbo diesel, but we did do a lot of magical things, and if you want to learn more about that, if you're in California, give me a call, and I'll explain everything that we did. But the horsepower and the torque on this has been drastically increased. We did a lot, let's put it that way. And what I mean by drastically increased, this thing moves down the road quickly, and it has a great bassy sound to it because it does have the Helderburg stainless steel performance exhaust all the way through. So again, California compliant, magical things done to it. It drives like a dream. It drives like a modern day SUV in the performance and how it gets up and moves down the road, but also the steering, the suspension. The Helderburg exclusive suspension under here. It does have the Fox shocks. It has the iBox springs. It has the proper radius arms, the proper prop shaft, because whenever you lift the vehicle, you have what I call your redneck or your teenage lift, which is the inexpensive way to do it, where you just put some, bigger tires on it and you put some coil springs on it to raise it up and you call it done, which is not the proper way to lift a vehicle. When you lift it, you have to put the proper radius arms, which are a different degree of radius. So what the radius arms do is they turn the axles back to the proper point, and trailing arms, again, you're turning your axles back so you're not wearing all the parts out. But when you do that, you have to put different brake lines, you have to do different prop shafts because you've increased all that length. And instead of putting a lot of tension on those parts, you should do it properly. And of course, that's what we always do on all Helderbergs. The other thing, the paint. The paint is absolutely flawless. It's beautiful, it's perfect, it's pristine. I would say that you would think it was a factory job because that's what a lot of people think, but this is a 3-stage paint job. 3-stage paint job is what we call a concourse level paint job. It does have the clear coat. It actually has more than one layer of clear coat, because when we're designing a Helderberg, I'm designing them to be used, and a lot of our clients really do use them. They use them on farms. They use them for off-roading. So you can definitely run it down the brush and it can scratch it and then it will buff out, depending on how crazy the brush is. Of course, I mean, nothing is going to be perfect all the way, but you have a lot of layers of clear coat to be able to buff something out if you get some scratches on it, because it was designed to be used. Inside the interior, let's take a look at that, because there's some unique new things that you've never seen on a Helderberg before that's on this one. So the first question I always get asked when someone sits in a Helderberg, when it's this style of a seat, is they reach over here beside the seat and they pick this up and they go, "What is this?" And I always make the joke, well, it's your blood pressure cuff, because your blood pressure will be elevated when you're driving a Helderberg. But the fact is, this is your classic vintage lumbar. So you squeeze it like a blood pressure cup and it raises your lumbar up. And then if you want to take your lumbar down, and it lets it go down. So cool little classic element. The interior is a 2-tone interior, but you'll notice I really minimized the buck stop, or the buck color interior. meaning the tan. The doors are done all in black sand leather with the tan diamond stitch that matches the center of the seats. The dash is all in black leather, again with the contrasting stitch. But then the headliner in the nice buck color matches the center of the seat. So very, very simple, subtle thing. Of course, the buck is on the actual center console, which is a locking center console. It is a metal console, so you can put stuff in there and lock it up. So I mentioned some things that are in here that you haven't seen previous. Well, you've definitely seen the big 11-inch touchscreen. Now we've been doing that for a while. It seems like everyone wants it. But some new touches to go along and complement our door handles. And then as far as our locking pegs here and the door handles here, the window cranks, this is all billet aluminum now, but we took it a step farther. The horn, the headlights, all the instruments here, all of the switches, windshield wipers are all done in billet aluminum. Gives it a really nice touch. Everything flows together. I'll let you take some time and look at this. And now let's go to the rear of it, and I'm going to show you some magical things there. All right, so we're at the back of Noire where the magic continues. I'm never going to forget that. That was pretty funny when I stopped at the gas station and they said, that's magical. But anyway, so let's talk about the rear. First, let's start with the bumper. You'll notice that the bumper is a little different than what you see on other Land Rovers, meaning that it does not have the NAS style step-up bumper with the receiver. So the client said, no, I'm not going to be towing anything, that's fine. And I said, great, let's do this type of bumper, which actually has the side, basically steps is what it is, but it just has a much cleaner look, and I just really like it. You've probably seen a few Helderburgs, like I did it on Bizek, the 110, which you can see on Helderburg.com, which it seems like everybody loved that one. And I was wondering if everybody would, but they did. Moving to the backup camera. So you do have a backup camera on that big 11-inch touchscreen, and the camera, the actual camera, is built into the license plate light, which cleans everything up. You have your windshield sprayer up here, but then you don't have a camera above it. So really like it. And surprisingly, the camera works really well. I had a lot of people go, are you really going to be able to see how to back up? Tires going to be in the way? No, works great. I really like this. So this is a new touch on Helderbergs. So moving on to the inside, you will notice it's center-facing benches with seat belts for 4. And you will also notice in the second row here that there's 2 seats with the center console. I do this a lot, unless it's for a large family, because it gives you additional storage. But you'll notice that the center console is raised up higher, and that's because it becomes the perfect armrest for your passengers in the second row. But there was a little bit of magic that happened too, that right under that center console is the custom subwoofer enclosure. We have 2 8-inch subs right there, and it's being powered by a 1200 watt amplifier. So we have a 5-channel 1200 watt amplifier that's running all of the audio system in here. And then right here in the back area, right behind here, you have your focals, which are coaxials, which play your midtones, your high tones. So it gives it a really great sound for your passengers that are back here. And I will tell you, speaking from experience, multiple times, whenever Christy and I have another couple visit or 2 other couples and we go out to dinner, they always say, can we ride in the back? And I'm like, oh yeah, you can ride in the back even though we have the second row. But again, center console makes it nice because we have the rear view mirror, and that's how I end up having a conversation with our guest as they're sitting here in the back. Even though they're not paying attention to me, they're giggling, they're laughing, they're loving life. So, wood floor, mahogany wood floor. It has the flutes, the fluted channels in it. It has the really, I think, stunning silver screws, and the reason silver screws instead of a brass or a black is because the silver matches the billet aluminum that's all through the cabin. Again, it's important that everything flows, and that's what I often hear from a lot of people when they look at a Helderburg and they're, comparing it to other Defenders. They go, wow, everything, every detail is perfect and everything flows. Again, silver, even all the, this is a full nut and bolt restoration, so everything works together. And then you'll notice the sea blue LED lighting that just creates an ambiance, helps the mood. So I won't tell you what a buddy said, but anyway, but it definitely helps the mood. I think all I'm missing is a disco ball, but I can't help it. I like color, I like light. So LED lights under the wood strips here that light up the floor. Whenever you turn on the headlights, the lights come on. You have the LED lights that run along the headliner up here. You have the LED lights that run in the second row that lights up the footwell. If your guests decide to ride in the second row, that is. But anyway, Brian, not calling anybody out. So LED lights back there, the cocoa floor mats. On the front of the cabin in the footwells, you have the sea blue LED lights, and then behind the 11-inch touchscreen, you have the LED lights, which actually lights up your Helderburg copper plaque that has the build, which this is Noire, and then has your name as the client, as the owner of what many people call a masterpiece, which just makes me smile because we love doing this. If you have any questions, if you want to commission a build, then reach out to me at helderburg.com, schedule your appointment. But I definitely have to quit talking now because I'm going to go put some miles on this and enjoy it. And I hope you enjoy the pictures that we're going to share